Okay, being 4:30, I welcome everybody to the special committee meeting. Look, before I open the meeting, I just want to make this point, and I had this feedback from a number of people. Considering we're having committee meetings here in this chamber, not in the other room, and when we were in the other room, the chairperson was always out the front with the thing. There's been a number of times where some committees, and I'm not being detrimental, but some committees, the chairperson is sitting somewhere in amongst the group and no one knows. The people out there in video land, this is feedback I've received. Okay. They don't know who's chairing and I don't think, but may I suggest that take it on board that the chairperson sits at the head of the table, or we move back into the other room. I think we've got to show a bit of professionalism, that's all. Okay, apologies of leave of absence. Do we have any apologies of leave of absence? Sorry?
2 leave of absences.
2 leave of absence, who are they?
Councillor Alderman Sexton and Councillor Coates.
Alderman Sexton, Councillor Coates. So we'll co-opt Alderman, Councillor Bill Harvey.
Councillor Harvey, I'll move that we co-opt Councillor Harvey.
All those in favour?
Aye.
No one against, that's very good. You're co-opted, Councillor Harvey.
Pleased to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Indication of pecuniary and conflict of interest. And the Lord Mayor, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Someone move it. The Lord Mayor's automatic. Yes. So is that correct? No, someone move for the Lord Mayor. No one against, and the Lord Mayor's in the room as well. Indication of pecuniary and conflict of interest. There be none. Be transfer agenda items. There be none. There'll be reports. Before we got a report, we have a deputation by Mr. Edward Johnson. Mr. Johnson, look, come forward if you can. Sit next to the Lord Mayor if you feel comfortable. If not, you can speak from there. It's entirely up to you, because there's a microphone, I believe, right in front of you there, and it might be better for all of us. Okay. Please don't feel intimidated. We are all here to listen to you. You have 3 or 5 minutes. 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes, and then we can ask questions immediately after that. Okay. No worries. I'll introduce you just so we're following best protocol. The Lord Mayor, the Alderman Thomas, the Deputy Lord Mayor, and Councillor Harvey. We have the CEO. We've got 2 directors next to you and some directors behind you. Okay, go for it.
My name is Edwin Johnston. I'm a long-term small business owner from the Salamanca area of Hobart and founder of the Hobart Parking Action Group. I'd like to thank the committee tonight for letting me reply to the response to petition reduction of on-street parking fees report. Just as a background to the original petition, I presented it to Council on the 11th of October 2021 with over 3,700 signatures, some 217 days ago. Why is it that certain people can come into these council meetings with complex, long-winded questions and get them answered, yet I have 3,700 signatures and I had to wait 217 days for a response? Even the recent UTAS petition only had 1,700 signatures. Anyway, the petition was in response to the substantial increase in the maximum on-street parking cost of $5 an hour in the inner CBD and Salamanca areas on the 1st July 2021. The intent of the petition was to seek a reduction in the maximum on-street parking rate from $5 an hour to $3 an hour. Also, the petition asked for no further rises above CPI until a detailed report was published and consulted on. Nowhere in this report tonight does it even mention CPI. To be clear, the intent of the petition was never about free parking, increased on-street parking, or even parking out the front of a business. All these misrepresentations have been alluded to by members of this council. So I can be accused of no misrepresentations, I will be quoting the facts and figures from 2 council documents, the report tonight and the budget estimates. Section 2.12 of the report states that parking activity was consistently equal or greater than the previous year. Since the 1st of July 2021, average on-street parking costs have risen to $3.74 an hour, a 30% increase. So if parking activity was consistently equal, that 30% increase has come from increased fees. The council has budgeted for a 60% increase. to 8.17 million on-street parking fees. Judging by these figures, the council is experiencing a 30% increase, but they budgeted for a 60% increase. So obviously the council was expecting much more on-street parking take-up. If 60% was the expectation, but 30% was the reality, there must be plenty of vacant spots. Section 9.1 states, many of the city's parking bays are already close to full occupancy. So again, where does the 60% figure come from? The reason I raise this is how can I trust section 7.2.1, the financial implication of a reduction? The financial implication of reducing maximum on-street parking fees is stated as being 2.2 million. But how reliable is this figure if other predictions are so wildly apart? So on-street parking is close to full occupancy and activity is consistently equal or greater than the previous year. But what is full occupancy in the council's opinion? Section 2.10 shows an occupancy chart that at best shows average occupancy at close to 60%. Is that full occupancy? Going back to the $3.74 an hour average parking cost, what does that mean, $3.74? Not much for the people in inner CBD and Salamanca. The cost is $5 an hour. I do not have statistics on these areas, with section 2.14 admitting that the experience at specific locations may not reflect the overall trend. The actual point of the petition was to be able to see what was happening in these spaces. The petition also asked for no future rises above CPI until we have a detailed report. But what are future prices going to be? Section 7.3.1 states the current pricing structure simplifies payments to whole dollar amounts, and fractional dollar amounts will increase the likelihood of coin jams, wear and tear, and required maintenance. What does this mean? Well, firstly, the council must not have much faith in the machines purchased. But more importantly, does that mean any future rises can only be in whole dollar amounts? The current maximum is $5. When will it be $6, $7, $8 an hour? In conclusion, I agree with the majority of the 5 recommendations, just not convinced there is enough evidence to refute the price decrease. But I understand it was always going to be a tough ask. But what I am worried about is future price rises, and with the 1st of July so close, what is next? Especially considering a more detailed report is not forthcoming at this stage.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. I'll open the room to questions. I'll start with the Lord Mayor.
No, I'm not ready
Okay.
for a question just yet.
Alderman Baracus, Alderman Thomas.
Just a question through you, Chair, to the the correct departmental representative. The petitioner, and just to give us an explanation, asked for an analysis of certain areas, certain locations. Was that in any way addressed in the? Was there an attempt to address that in the report, or have we done an overall averaging of prices across the city?
We've done an overall assessment of parking occupancy, and I guess the thrust of the report is that through the development of our integrated parking system, we're getting increasingly better data. So we would like to match that data with some of the other data sources that we're recommending. So we would be looking at that in the report that's referred to in this recommendation.
So, Chair, if I might, so a future analysis could give the petitioner specific reference to the areas he's seeking on behalf of his petitioners, and most importantly, if there was a downturn for any reasons in those particular areas, that could be taken into account in terms of a campaign or in terms of another piece of action that assisted retailers and shoppers.
Other thing that we want to do is we have a planned trading promotional campaign that we want to partner up with some parking incentives as well, and we want to be able to bring that parking data together with some economic data so we can understand the interaction between the parking offers that we have made and the impact on businesses.
Alderman Thomas, I don't want to sort of take away from your questions, but please direct the questions to Mr. Johnson. Any questions to staff we can have during debate.
thank you.
Okay, please. Any questions to Mr. Johnson, Deputy?
Thank you. I think Alderman Thomas has asked the most intelligent intelligent question, but I suppose you've obviously done your research, and thanks so much for your presentation today. I'm just curious, from what you've read in this report tonight that we're considering, is there anything that that you feel is of benefit? I mean, you've obviously raised a number of questions associated with parking, but do you feel there's information in here which is of value to what you've asked?
Not really. This is just a little bit of an overview. I was expecting a bit more of a detailed report. Yeah, there was one section that I didn't expect, which I must say was I do agree with. So I better be so that I definitely agree with something, and that is something I didn't ask for, and that is the where is it? It's about people with mobility issues.
Yep.
Yeah, affordable parking for those members. That's something I've never brought up, but that's most welcome.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, Mr Johnson, did I hear you say that you're reasonably happy with the recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. I'm happy about that. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I obviously wanted a price reduction. I know that's a big ask, but it was also really to put downward pressure on future rises.
mm-hmm.
That is the overall intent.
Yeah.
That's what I'm scared about.
Okay, but I am pleased that you're happy with the officer's recommendation in general. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got some questions for you. The potential financial implications that this could have on the budget bottom line. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the council needs to stop relying on the small businesses in Hobart the businesses and the visitors of Hobart to prop up the budget. The council rose these maximum fees in the first place, so they would not actually be a reduction if they came down, it would be more of a correction. This would not be an issue if the budget was done correctly in the first place. I mean, I don't need to bring up something like you can easily find money for Mr Callis or Meyer when needed, a lot more money. This is about the people that come into this city and the people that are being scared away.
The other thing is you had a decent sized petition. So what evidence do you have in regards to the public's comment in regards to parking in the city?
Well, obviously anecdotal evidence is hard, but I can draw on your own customer satisfaction survey, which rated parking right down the bottom of most concern. And the other thing I can say from my business point of view, I have a client base of roughly 1,000 people that I see every 6 to 8 weeks, and they're a captive audience. So my customers I sit with and I talk to, and it is a major issue, and it is affecting their movements around the city.
I understand that because in my hospitality trade I used to get a lot of feedback as well. And lastly, the competitive neutrality obligations of the council, what's your thoughts on there, or are you aware of it?
Well, I noticed that was brought up in the report, and it mentioned that the complaint had been made towards the council on this issue, and this was a complaint in 2001 to the Oversight Commission, but that was about on-street and off-street parking costs, and they were separated. There is no competition with on-street parking. There is competition with off-street parking. I'm concerned with on-street parking, and as far as I can tell, there is no private sector competition. So that doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin. Mr. Johnson. Sorry, Edwin. Thank you very much. The council will now, committee will now debate the matter. Thank you. You can stay there if you like, or move back. But the questions, no, actually, yes, sorry, move back there, Deputy, you're right. Okay, now, look, before I ask, as the committee well knows, I always like to listen to debate and discussion, and I always give my overview later. But there's something I'd like for committee to give consideration to, whoever is the person to move it. I am quite prepared to stand aside from the chair and move it as an amendment, or if the mover would be prepared to accept this in, and I'll speak to it as well. Craig, could you put it up, please? So all I'm asking is whether or not the person who moves this will add this in when Craig brings it up, and when he brings it up, I am going to speak to it. But if a person doesn't move it with this addition, I'm happy to come down. It's in regards that an urgent report be forthcoming to Shop and Save parking discounts similar to Victoria Gardens for both on and off-street metered parking whereby paid parking is provided. The report consider a phasing in program, including the best times of the day for the use of the Shop and Save discount parking system, including which businesses partake in such a program and in particular financial implications. I would like to make this point. It's been now 6 years since I first brought this to this council. I've brought it in, I've moved amendments, I think 3 times, and it just seems to get lost in all the things we're doing on parking, and we've never done anything about it. Now, this program works really, really well. The former director in the chamber said, yes, we can implement such a system, but nothing happened, and that was about 4 years ago in this chamber. So I would like that we move forward to something like this, and I'm talking about on and off street parking. It works really well at Victoria Gardens, where a person spends, I think, over $20 or $25 or whatever have you it is, and they get discounts on car parking.
Happy to move,
right?
Move the motion with that included.
Thank you. I'll just finish speaking on this, because at least this way here, we can target people to come into the city or Salamanca, where there's paid parking, so it could be the waterfront. And we could even specifically target the businesses that we want to be on the Spend and Save program. It could be that it's all retail and X. It could be that certain times of the day, you know, even the hospitality industry can be involved. In other words, trying to entice people to come and have lunch in the city between X and X. Look, you know, the reason why I'm bringing it up again with this one, we are well aware that we have a report that states that parking is the #1 issue in the city. This petition was brought forward with people. Yes, we always got to look at our bottom line, and that's why I've asked for, and I'm the one that always asks for the bottom line, the dollar, how much it's going to cost, the financial implications. You know, could it be that by providing such a service, we're going to get more people coming into our city and shopping in our city? Because at the end of the day, we all know that the city CBD rate base is the one that assists the big picture of Hobart. We shouldn't just focus on parking. We're going to need to understand the rate base. So I've spoken about this component of the motion. It's opened and moved by Alderman Thomas. Councillor Harvey, you were looking to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got 3 points to make. Thanks, Mike. First one is, what's the difference between Part 6 and Part 4? Part 4, the city continues to plan for time-limited parking campaigns and related promotional activity targeted to support retailers in specific areas, and the effect of these campaigns be used as data for more detailed analysis of parking. I think that's what you're trying to get at.
No, I'm not. That's talking about data. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about specific discount campaign that targets people to come in the city, let's hypothetically say, between 10 and 2, between Monday to Thursday. you get a discount if you come in and spend $25. It's completely different. That talks about data. And the amendment I've put forward was actually agreed to by this council 6 years ago and agreed to in this chamber 4 years ago by the former director that he was going to pursue it. 4 years later, it hasn't happened, and 6 years ago, this is very specific. It's about a person coming into this city, wherever is on-street or off-street parking is, they spend money in our city and they get a discount on their parking. Councillor Dutta, unfortunately you haven't got meters up there, and North Hobart's have been shut down, so they're out of the equation. It's where meters, but the Condell car park can be added into the mix. So anywhere, Lefroy car park, anywhere where there's paid parking, and that, it's completely different, Councillor Harvey.
Okay,
sorry.
so you keep your shopping vouchers, and then but how do you get a discount from a machine?
There's a machine. It's okay. It's very simple. There's a machine. You put your barcode into the machine, right? The machine's set up, and it takes into account how much you've spent, and it gives you this discount.
Okay, and this would be in the multi-storey car parks?
Multi-storey,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it can be also implemented on street as well.
All right. Yep. Okay. And my couple other points is, like parking campaign, come and park, get a discount, or catch the bus and get a discount. So they're different things. But I'd also like us to explore that. And I'm not going to move anything. It's just for conversation purposes.
I'll make this point. The council went down the track of riding your bike and getting a free coffee. That does not help the city. Ride a bike, right, and get a discount. Ride a bike and get a discount on something is better than giving someone something for free.
All right. Okay. I'm not going to argue, but I'm just pointing out some things.
Yeah, no, good point. I've got no problem.
But overall, I'm really pleased with the report and the substantive motion. I think it's strong, and I'm really pleased that Mr. Johnson is also pleased, generally speaking, with this. So that means we've fulfilled our obligation, I think, to the petitioners. So I'm pleased about that. The Part 6, we require a report on the Part 6.
That's what I'm calling for.
Okay, but overall, I'm happy with the recommendation, and I'm happy with the outcome for the petitioners as well. I think the officers have done a good job here. Thank you.
Any other? Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm happy to support your amendment. My only question is, we just need, because it was an idea or something you've seen 4 years ago, it doesn't mean it's the only idea, and I just would hope that the report that comes back just does a little scoping exercise to make sure what are the best performance sort of parking, shopping type of things, because I know City of Darwin did something recently, and the Mayor of Darwin just raves about it and says it's just been the best thing they've ever done, and it's a similar sort of thing. So I just would like, rather than just Victoria Gardens, can we just say shop and save programs?
Alderman Thomas, you're happy to add Victoria Gardens or similar?
Correct.
Okay. He's added that in.
Sure. All right. So the only question I had was just whether we know that the question Mr. Johnson put to us about the occupancy being sort of 60% is kind of the highest, a bit over 60% is the highest point. Is there a reason that we consider on-street parking occupancy, the little graph? And he was saying that that occupancy is generally very good and very high, but that data does show that it's around about 60%.
Yeah, so I guess one of the reasons that we want to do this further piece of analysis is there have been some assumptions made about when the parking rates were lower because they were related to periods of home isolation around the COVID pandemic. So again, we want to have the opportunity to factor in for those, and again to run a test period, hopefully when we're not dealing with those kind of impacts. That's the assumption that's been made about why the parking has landed as it has.
Okay. So would you consider high occupancy to be 100% normally? Or is that just not realistic in?
I think it's going to depend on the location of the parking. So we know that the more high value car parks in the sort of central CBD are at very high, almost 100% occupancy, but it varies across the parking areas, which is why we do need to look at it on an area by area basis.
Okay. Yep, that's all.
Chairman, do you mind if we get your amendment up? I'm sorry,
Right,
my contact lens just shifted on my eye. Just in relation to the recommendation, I think we usually suggest that the petitioners be notified as part of a recommendation, which is missing. So if that can be added.
Alderman Thomas,
Thank you.
Okay,
No
that's
problem.
been added.
And through you to the director or whoever, just in relation, I mean, Mr. Johnston talked about that reliance on parking revenue. Obviously, it's always been, or certainly for a long time, it's been a very important part of our business or our budgeting. And just through you to the CEO, how much, what is the percentage of parking for our overall budget? Our parking.
So through you, Chair, I'll need to take that on notice and come back to you, Deputy. Thank you.
Because I think, like we also do obviously have that as, like it is an important component. So whilst I hear the concerns of Mr. Johnston and the petitioners, I think we need to be realistic about what where our revenue sources are coming from. So this is going to be changed to include other
And or similar.
So purely shop and save, was that the
And or similar.
and or similar? Okay, all right, thank you.
No other, Alderman Barakis.
Just quickly, Chair, because I'm not voting on this one in committee. I think the point that was made that the issue of parking, whether it's availability or cost or whatever, has been marked as by our own surveys as the biggest issue. And I'll note what the Deputy Lord Mayor said. We do have to be responsible with how we manage our budget and our revenue sources. I think we also do need to be responsible from a spending side, so we're not as reliant on digging into the pockets of people and making things more difficult. I think we have a parking system where you have certain areas on certain times of the day and peak hour where we might not have enough parking spots, and then you have other times when in between those where we might have lower usage and the costs are making it harder to motivate people to come to the area. So it's about getting that balance right. I'd like to see us doing more to reduce that burden, but I'm not going to go against what's in the motion today. But I just think it's something that we need to be mindful of in the future, to find ways to make it easier and cheaper for people to park in the city, but within council's budget and such. So I'll just put that thought out there.
Just want to close in saying this. Sometimes it pays to have an elected member who's been around the chamber for a long period of time. Once upon a time, this council did not rely on parking as a revenue source for its rates base. All parking used to go into a consolidated parking fund, which used to build car parks and was always spent on car parking. It's when the legislation changed that this council changed its position and decided that the parking fund, as per the legislation, would no longer continue and parking would go into consolidated revenue. The point I'd like to also make is the City of Glenorchy, the City of Hobart, the City of Glenorchy, the City of Clarence and the City of Kingborough don't rely on parking as a revenue source for their rates. So I think what we need to do as a council is maybe go back into looking at, as far as I'm concerned, I won't put anything now, but going back to that process, even though the legislation has changed, and have a parking fund that's dedicated towards parking in all shapes and forms. It could mean that we could provide more bike parking. It could mean we can provide more bus parking. Whatever it is, it's in relevance to providing parking and that. And I would like to see the day we go back to that and look at other innovative ways of raising revenue for our rates. And I'm pointing that out that I think we've just become too reliant on the parking as an important component. I don't think it is. So I'll put the motion. Anyone against? The item has been carried unanimously and will go to council tonight. Thank you all very much. Withdrawn, so it's already been withdrawn.
A motion? We do need a motion.
So someone move to withdraw. Anyone against? No one against. Items carried.